The government widened its targeted subsidy mechanism by removing a rebate for households with monthly electricity consumption worth 220 ringgit and above in the first half of 2024. In the revised subsidy mechanism, households consuming between 600 kilowatt-hour to 1,500 kilowatt-hour of power monthly, translating to a bill of between 220 ringgit and 707 ringgit, will not qualify for the 2 cent per kilowatt rebate. Households with lower electricity consumption will continue to benefit from the rebate. According to the Energy Commission, the elimination of the rebate will lead to an increase in the monthly bills of 1.2 million affected households by 4.2% to 6%, which amounts to an additional 12 ringgit to 32 ringgit. However, those households will continue to receive a discount by not having to pay the 10 cent per kilowatt-hour surcharge. The surcharge has been applied since July 2023 to households consuming over 1,500 kilowatt-hour or 708 ringgit of electricity per month. On the whole, 85% of households in Peninsular Malaysia will be unaffected by the revised mechanism. As for commercial and industrial customers, Putrajaya maintained the tariffs to avoid any increase in the prices of goods and services amid inflationary pressures and high fuel costs. The Malaysia Competition Commission (MICC) slapped cumulative penalties totaling a record 415.5 million ringgit on 5 feed millers, including 3 units of Bursa Malaysia listed companies for colluding in a chicken feed cartel. MICC CEO Iskandar Ismail said the 5 companies are Leong Hap Feed Mill Malaysia, a wholly owned subsidiary of Leong Hap International, Malayan Flour Mills partially owned Dinding's Poultry Development Centre, PPB Group's 80% owned FFM, Goldcoin Group's Goldcoin Feed Mills Malaysia, and PK Industrial Products Malaysia under Charon Pokpan Holdings, which in turn is a unit of Thai conglomerate Charon Pokpan Group Co. This is the largest amount of fines that has ever been imposed by the quasi-judicial body in its 12-year history. According to MICC, the 5 enterprises had conspired to hike the price quantum of poultry feed between 2020 and 2022. It said there are 29 feed millers in the country, and the 5 command about 40% of the total market share. Iskandar called cartels a supreme evil in competition law and a form of economic sabotage at the highest level, more so in a public interest case. He also urged the government to come up with a national animal feed policy in order to control the price of chicken and other proteins in the market. This follows MICC's findings that chicken feed stood out as a significant cost factor in poultry farming, constituting a substantial 72.8% of the overall expenses. Malaysia's inflation rose 1.5% year-on-year in November, the slowest pace since February 2021, amid lower price increases recorded for food, health, restaurants and hotels. Core inflation, excluding volatile items of fresh food as well as administered prices of goods by the government, stood at 2% in November, the lowest since February 2022. Chief Statistician Datuk Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin said the continued deceleration since last August came as prices for food and non-alcoholic beverages rose 2.6% in November versus 3.6% in October, while increases at restaurants and hotels slowed to 4.3% from 4.6%. Meanwhile, prices for food at home increased at a slower rate of 1.4% in November compared to 2.1% previously, while the price growth for food away from home slowed to 3.9% against the 5.6% registered in October. 5 states saw inflation jump past the 1.5% national rate, namely Putrajaya at 2.3%, Sarawak 2%, Perak 1.9%, Penang 1.8% and Selangor 1.7%. On a monthly basis, headline inflation remained unchanged at 0.1% in November as compared to October. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim said the MACC's move to seize the Ilham Tower in Kuala Lumpur proves the authorities do not protect the corrupt, regardless of whether they hold titles or wield power or influence. He stressed that all parties need to give space to the investigating body to carry out its duties. The Prime Minister also urged the people not to assume the government has ulterior motives whenever there are influential figures involved in a corruption case. Yesterday, the agency seized the Ilham Tower that is said to be owned by former Finance Minister Tun Daim Zainuddin. According to Channel News Asia, this follows his refusal to submit to petitions issued by the MACC for him and his family to declare his assets in its probe into purported money laundering in relation to corporate transactions involving Renault and United Engineers Malaysia. Prior to this, a senior MACC source had confirmed with The Edge in late May that the anti-graft agency was looking into the 1990s Renault UEM deal. Johor-based Pawnbroker Well Chip Group is seeking to list on the main market of Bursa Malaysia. The company is offering 150 million new shares, representing 25% of its enlarged issued share capital. The 150 million shares comprise a public offering of 30 million shares via balloting, 45 million shares for private placement to institutional selected investors, and 75 million for private placement to Bumiputra investors. Well Chip provides pawnbroking services and is also involved in retail and trading of jewellery. Currently, the group has 26 operating outlets in Johor, comprising 22 pawn shops and 4 retail outlets, which are adjacent to its pawn shops. According to its draft prospectus, it plans to use the IPO proceeds for the initial setup costs and working capital requirements for 8 new pawn shops in Johor and Malacca. Once Well Chip has developed and expanded its network of pawn shops in Malacca, it will turn its sights to Negeri Sembilan. In FY 2022, the group's profit after tax rose by 5.79% to 25.16 million ringgit, as revenue jumped 55% to 158.12 million ringgit.